Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Inky Thoughts podcast. Today, we're going to take a stab at quite an interesting profession that we all need from time to time for various different reasons, which is the medical system or the profession of medicine in all its various kinds. And funny enough, actually, not funny at all, but don't mind the pun there. Uh, it is one of the few professions when you look at it from my line of work, sociology, one of the few still quite stigmatized profession when it comes to looking different, so to say. Being tattooed, for example, as I like to be, and my guest today certainly likes to be tattooed as well. It's still a profession, but weirdly enough, despite how life-saving it can be in various different ways, people are quite stigmatized if they choose to get tattoos, even without it being to the extent that I'm tattooed or the extent that my guest today is tattooed. But without revealing too much about him, he sits there smiling with me with his glorious mustache. I'll throw it over to John himself to introduce himself now further. Please, John.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name's John Brosious. I'm a board certified plastic and reconstructive surgery practicing in Las Vegas, Nevada, here in the United States. My focus of my practice is the whole entire spectrum of plastic surgery from head to toe, cosmetic surgery, reconstructive surgery. I do a lot of cancer reconstruction, trauma, reattach fingers, reattach arms, gunshots to the face, and as well as cosmetic surgery head to toe. And one of my main specialties, one of my niches is actually transgender surgery, including chest surgery for transgender patients, as well as genital surgery. And I'm actually the only surgeon in the state of Nevada that does any genital surgeries for transgender patients. I was born and raised in the East Coast, actually, of the United States, a little bit more conservative part of the country, and in Pennsylvania, to be exact. Did my undergraduate at the University of Notre Dame, which actually is a Catholic school. So I grew up
Well,
going to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, Catholic college. I was even an altar boy back in the day. I'm not sure if the Catholic Church really likes me as too much these
woo!
days. And then I stayed in the state of Indiana. The University of Notre Dame is in Indiana, and I stayed in the state of Indiana, did my medical degree at Indiana University for 4 years. And then I did my residency. So in the United States, we have, residency for your subspecialties.
Hmm.
And the plastic surgery residency is 6 years. And I did mine actually here at the University of Nevada. And that after those 6 years, I did a short stint in Pennsylvania. I was affiliated with the University of Pittsburgh, a clinical professor there in kind of a hybrid private practice academic group, doing, head to toe reconstructions and cosmetic surgery. And that's actually when I got into transgender surgery. And then after about 3 years there, my mentor, the director of the training program here in Nevada, who taught me everything I know, he passed away suddenly, and the University of Nevada, Las Vegas asked if I would come back and be an assistant professor and the director of the training program. So I moved back to Las Vegas in 2016 and worked for the University of Nevada, Las Vegas for several years. And during that time, most of that time, I was the program director for the plastic surgery training program as an assistant professor. And then about a year and a half ago, myself and one of the other former professors at UNLV, we started our own practice here called the Vegas Plastic Surgery Institute, which focuses on microsurgery, advanced reconstruction, breast reconstruction, gender surgery, cosmetic surgery. And we're still affiliated with the university. I still teach kind of two groups of residency training programs, the general surgery group at the private hospital, as well as the plastic surgery residents through the University of Nevada. A little bit about myself. I loved getting tattoos. That's the reason I'm here. I'm sure we'll go into
Well,
that a
yeah.
little bit more. And fitness is probably my big hobby. I was actually at the gym this morning. I lifted weights, got to the gym before 6 a.m., lifted weights. So I ran 5 miles. That's about 8 kilometers for all my European folk out there. I run about
Thank
8
you. Thank you.
kilometers.
I thank you very much for a person funded a metric system.
Yeah. So I have enough European friends that they don't understand when I say I run 5 miles. They're like, "What is that? That doesn't sound very far." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, about 8 kilometers." I do that about 5 times a week, so I run maybe about 40 kilometers a week. And
Nice, man.
used to do more distance running, but then as I got older, I realized that the wear and tear on your body, not so much. So I think 5 to 10 miles or 8 to 16 kilometers per session is enough for me. And then outside of that doesn't leave me with a whole lot of free time. Running a practice. Being a surgeon is a full-time job,
Ah,
especially since I take call at multiple trauma centers for,
mm,
mangled limbs, amputated limbs, that kind of a thing, dog bites, as well as, infections and things like that to hands, that kind of a thing. But then I also run a practice. So the way I say it is I'm like the CEO, but I'm also the labor. So then at night I have to come home and do my charting, do the payroll,
Jeez, man.
figure out insurance for my, health insurance negotiations with all the insurance companies, work with the accountants, work with the marketing team. So it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for a lot of hobbies or free time. I live in Las Vegas where we have plenty of things to do. I don't drink. I don't really go
Jeez,
out.
man.
If I have a friend coming into town or something like that, maybe I'll go see a show or get a nice dinner or something like that. But aside from that, my tattooing is really one of my biggest hobbies. I pretty much go
I mean, no wonder you go get tattooed so often as you do as to see your social media, man. That's your only day out, man.
It's my only day out. So I do it every Saturday morning, pretty much. My tattoo artist is
Jeez,
one of
man.
my best friends. I've known him for,
That's great.
he's done probably 95% of my work. I've known him for, gosh, it's probably close to 14, 15 years now. And so I pretty much go every Saturday that I'm in town. Even when I'm on call, I'll make sure I go in the morning. I pretty much every Saturday morning we're there. So I'll be there in a few hours, working a little bit on my leg sleeve today.
Yeah, you told me. We had to reschedule this interview actually because
Yeah.
John told me last week that, oh shit, man, can't do 11 a.m. emergency tattoo appointment. Like,
Yeah. We had to go a little early. Yeah, he had a busy day, so he had to move me up a little bit. And so that's like my therapy session. Everyone's like, "God, why do you go tattoo?" And I'm like, "Well, it's kind of like my therapy session where I zone out, and the pain kind of takes me away from my work, my stress, and everything like that." So
There's actually quite a lot of research in psychology and sociology that points towards the pain playing quite a role in that, but also the whole thing with being so intimate with somebody else and doing something for yourself like that, getting tattooed, can be very helpful, very, very healing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Even if you're not linking any narrative to the tattoo, the whole experience can still be very healing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's the whole thing with, as I know you're a big fan of as well, we talked about before the interview, the whole thing with getting closer to what you might have pictured as your true self, in the way you embody that identity, is very good for people. It has a tremendously positive effect for people when you do something that's at least when it's founded in your own ideas about yourself. And I say that as a little asterisk because when people get tattoos for what I could call social reasons sometimes, it not always works out that well.
Yeah.
Like getting a bro tat when you're in Florida or something like that. Shout out to Florida. I do know some great people there. But even Robbie Ripo, one of the greatest people I know, that great tattoo artist, was in the first episode of this podcast, will also tell you the bro tat on a holiday down there might not be the best idea. Rather come back another time, get a good tattoo.
Yeah.
I mean, for reasons you have found yourself, it's okay to get a tattoo in honor of a friend, but you gotta anchor it somewhere in your own idea about yourself. It can't just be like, oh no, me and my buddy, we got fucking smashed, and then we went and got this potato done because we went and shot a potato gun, and that was it. And that may hold up. It also might very well not hold up if you and your buddy end up almost killing each other 2 years later.
Yep. Classic mistake, but yeah.
And then you need to talk to a guy like John to get the skin removed if you're really
That's right. It is, it's kind of funny. I have had people come to me, because you can get laser removal for tattoos, but that's,
but it doesn't work that well. I hate when people advertise, oh, removing it 100%, because every single medical scientist I know and have read on will tell you, no, it can do a lot. But it's way better to get laser if you want to cover it with a new one.
Yeah,
if you actually want to remove the two, and sometimes if you get really bad infections in them, if you haven't found an artist that has proper hygiene, you need to surgically remove the skin.
Yeah, and I've cut off tattoos on wrists, faces.
I've seen a video of it getting done, and it was horrifying because it looks very grim, and I'm not normally squeamish, but it looks but I was also in awe of the precision with which it can be done. Because in this example, they only removed specific parts of the tattoo that was infected and left the rest, which fair enough is that's your choice. I would personally go for removing the whole thing, I guess. But
it's
impressive the amount of skill and the amount of, which is also why I think this is actually a good segue into another point that I kind of pinged in my head as you introduced yourself, John, because I know some people are going to say this. To anybody that wants to argue that John's not a medical doctor, he is. Even though he also does plastic surgery and more cosmetic stuff, that is still a form of healthcare. That is absolutely, if you look at how important mental health especially is and how that's tied into the body, it is a tremendous form of healthcare.
Yeah.
And especially when we look at the transgender stuff, that is
Yeah.
incredible. But even if you look at something, for lack of a better term, I'm sorry to butcher it like this, John, but even if you look at plastic surgery like breast augmentations for anybody, that can still be tremendous healthcare because for most people that get that done, it's not some bimbo walking in just wanting to look sexy for some guy or something. It's
Yeah.
actually people where they have tied in their sense of self and their femininity to another form of appearance that they strive to have. And helping them get closer to that can actually help improving their mental health and sense of self. Just
Absolutely.
in the way we just
Self-esteem.
talked about tattoos doing.
Yep.
There's quite a
Yep.
similarity there, which is why it's interesting that John is so tattooed as well, because there's some similarities between plastic surgery and tattooing in that
Yeah.
sense.
There really are. And I actually make this analogy a lot because there's in Las Vegas, we have a lot of a Mormon community here, which is interesting because the Mormons, not to trash on religion, but the Mormons really, they don't get tattoos. They're really
Yeah.
against tattoos. But every Mormon housewife has plastic surgery. Not everyone, but it's very common. And so I have this discussion with a lot of my Mormon friends, and it's a very jovial discussion. It says, how is it much different to get a tattoo, which is basically a cosmetic, modification of your body, than to have a breast augmentation, which the Mormons have no problem with.
I mean,
There's
at
a lot of
least from
great
a
Mormon plastic
sociological
surgeons.
perspective, no difference there, theoretically speaking.
Yeah.
No difference.
Yep. Yep, just cultural. It's just cultural,
Yeah.
and so it is interesting what you said about, cosmetic surgery being, it's great for people's self-esteem. Sometimes, 9 times out of 10, the right patient comes in, and if they're reasonable and they understand the risks, then, cosmetic surgery, it can be great and can be life-changing for them.
Mm.
And my job is to kind of root out the people who don't have great expectations or who think this is going to change their life. They're going to get a new job or their husband will come back to them. And so it's kind of my job to tease that out to make sure that people know, hey, look, this is not going to change your life maybe like that, but, maybe you had a big nose all of your life and you're self-conscious about it, shaving it down a little bit can have a huge impact on someone's self-esteem.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I do consider that, this is real medicine. And if you take a look at my Instagram, you can see I also reattach arms and
Yeah.
gunshot wounds and dog
Oh,
bites. And
I've seen it. Not at the
yeah,
right. I will say this. I looked at the exact wrong time once at one of your Instagram posts about that. I was like, you know what? This sausage roll isn't looking that good anymore. The
yeah,
ketchup's really not
yeah,
putting me
yeah.
on it right now.
Anybody who's watching, be careful if you look at my Instagram. If you click on those blurred photos, you can't unsee what you see. So there's a lot
And
of
I'm a curious boy, to be honest. And I can't help click. And I've made it a rule to not look at John's Instagram while I'm eating anything that has ketchup on it nowadays. Because
but
again, I'm
when
not
it comes,
squeamish. I can watch an eye operation while eating food. But for some
yeah.
reason, if I make my food look in any way like blood, it suddenly gets another kind of connection,
Mhm. Yeah.
Well,
And
I
it's
should
interesting.
congratulate you because you helped me figure that out. That okay, I can't make my food bloody in this sense while I'm watching surgery.
That's awesome. But even what you're saying about cosmetic surgery and reconstruction. And so for me, those two kind of worlds blend for me. I look at every reconstructive surgery as cosmetics, right? Breast reconstruction, I'm reconstructing somebody's breast after a mastectomy, or, a hand that's been burned. Obviously, I'm trying to restore the function of the hand, but I really want to also restore the form and make it look as
Mm,
normal as pre-injury as possible. So there's not, it almost the lines are blurry when it comes to what's reconstructive, what's cosmetic. And then
right.
certainly, with the transgender surgery, a lot of people argue, oh, this is cosmetic surgery. This is just them wanting to change something about themselves. And really, here in the state of Nevada, health insurance covers these surgeries. And so
Mm.
the insurance company would not pay for anything if there wasn't great studies, that have been put out for decades, literally showing, the mental health component of it, and that these are medically necessary. And so there is a
Well, I
lot of
mean,
overlap,
if you look at
what
your
we consider
Instagram and some
cosmetic.
of the beautiful messages you get from former clients and patients, not clients. I was speaking into
Yeah.
two artist terms now. I
Yeah.
interview way too many tattoo artists sometimes, so I call it a client by
Yeah.
accident. I'm so sorry to any of
No,
John's
no, no, no,
patients
no.
if they're
It's
listening in. No,
again, if they're
but
paying cash, a lot of it blurs the line between a client and a patient, and it's all semantics at the end of the day, right?
I'm so grateful for you rescuing my ass there, but John.
Yeah.
But
No, it's all the same.
you get some beautiful messages. I've looked at some of them sort of to prepare for this, and also because when I first found you by our mutual friend Duncan, actually
Yeah.
pointing me in John's way, who Duncan I'm also going to interview later this year.
Great.
It's also fascinating. He's a different kind of doctor, but
Yeah.
also a doctor.
Yeah.
uh,
I can't wait to interview him. He's a
mm,
fantastic guy. I
he's
met
a
him in
wild
person.
boy. He's a wild
Yeah.
boy. But
He is.
uh,
He is.
the thing is. there's so many beautiful messages you get, and it sort of shows what research will also point people towards. If you actually go and look at peer-reviewed medical journals, psychology journals, and sociology journals, especially, that this is saving lives. Even if it's not directly having to, like, it's not, even if it's not directly fucking opening up somebody's fucking
Yeah.
trachea because they can't breathe or
Yeah.
anything like that. It is
Yeah.
life-saving
Yeah.
surgery, because a lot of people, whether it's kids or adults, at some point this final straw that breaks the camel's back happens when you feel
Yep.
imprisoned in a body that's not what you feel like.
Yeah.
And
It
some people
is,
end up committing suicide. Even if you don't look at
yeah.
transgender people, it's been proven that for some people, getting tattoos can actually help improve their sense of self so much, just to compare the two things again,
Yeah.
that they stop having suicidal tendencies.
Yep.
Even if it
And I can
doesn't
see
cure
that.
depression or anything like that, it can still help them get over the hump to such an extent that at least suicide no longer seems like an option for them.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
No,
And
this is,
even more so with surgery, the kind of surgery you do, John, as
yeah.
there's been a direct link proven that
Yeah.
actually transitioning for people that have this, I struggle with the way to say it right, because I'm going to be quite clumsy, but people that know the true self is not the gender they were assigned at birth.
Hmm.
Transitioning can be a life altering in a positive way and life saving thing to do and go through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said about the suicide rates, I mean, this is a well-known statistic that 40% of transgender people will
Mm.
commit or attempt suicide in their lives. And so, this is, I never thought as a plastic surgeon I'd be saving lives. I save limbs, I save fingers, I save some people's faces. But until I started doing transgender surgery about 8 years ago, I never thought a patient, I'd be saving lives. And I would say every couple weeks, every week sometimes, a patient will hug me in the office and tell me that I
Yeah.
literally saved their life. And so that
Well,
is
I've
the,
seen,
that is the key.
again, I've seen some of the messages you get from former
Yeah.
patients, and it's absolutely heartwarming. Like I challenge anybody to not at least feel a little tear coming on sometimes with some of the
Yeah.
messages John gets, because these people are, the gratefulness they feel towards them is
Hmm.
immense, to say the
Yeah.
least.
It is. And sadly, society has treated them so poorly. The bar has been
Mm.
set so low for what their
Yeah.
expectations, even in the healthcare field, that, when they meet a doctor like me who just treats them like a
Mm.
human being, they're already ecstatic, right? That's the bare minimum to me. That's everybody should be treated like that. And we can go into how I got into gender surgery years ago, but to me, it kind of blows my mind that, society has been so poor to them. And I know this is a universal thing across all cultures, really, in all countries, that
Yeah.
just treating them like a human being, and they think you're their hero all of a sudden, and it's really sad. That I think we're heading in the right direction, at least with acceptance. The United States is making progress. Still, a lot of the country doesn't agree with me and what I
Yeah.
do, but I know at the end of the day, I'm doing the right thing. I sleep well at night, knowing what I do is right. And nobody does something new or does something innovative
Mm.
without having some backlash, right? And so
Absolutely.
hopefully 10 years from now, people look back and be like, what, this guy did know what he was doing, and he was on the right side of history.
I mean, I sadly, for you guys in America, but happily for the rest of the world, think that America is sadly the bad child here. Like not all of America. It's a massive country. It's very different from culture to
Mhm.
culture, state to state, area to area, as John
Yeah.
will probably happily sign under. But sadly, generally speaking, politically, America is worse on this topic than a lot of other countries are.
Yeah.
But even Denmark used to be better than we are. Like, we've come a long way since Denmark was the first country in the world where
Yeah.
transgender surgery was done.
Yeah.
Medical transition was done. There's a whole movie made about it called The Danish
Mhm.
Girl. If people
Yeah.
want to watch that,
I've seen
I
it.
haven't watched it myself, but I hear it's a great movie.
Yeah.
But the history of that fact, sadly, is sometimes not reflected anymore. There are some more conservative voices nowadays in Denmark, which makes it a bit more iffy. But for a
Yeah.
long time, Denmark was quite ahead of its time with these things, and it was something to
Yeah.
be quite proud about. And I hope we can be very proud of it again if it changes for
Yeah.
the better again here in Denmark, because it's nice to be able to go around and say, "Hey, I'm from this country that actually already does this." Like we used to be
Yeah.
very proud in Denmark of being the first country to legalize gay marriage,
Yeah.
uh,
Yep.
and that sort of thing, you know. Uh, uh, uh,
No.
and then nowadays, there's right wing voices that are like, "Oh, fuck this! It's not by God." And
Yeah.
it's like, "Fuck you! We used to be a really atheist country. There's a reason
Yeah.
we didn't
Yeah.
base this in religion, you know."
It's funny that you say that because it's true. Scandinavia, it really has been ahead of the rest of the world in terms of LGBTQ rights. And even, what you're saying is kind of similar to what Carolina, my girlfriend, was said about Poland, is that, they've even
Yeah.
taken a step back with more
Oh
conservative
yeah,
leadership.
there's been some really misogynist politics going on in Poland nowadays,
Yeah.
sadly. Uh,
Yeah.
and I feel for her because I've been following her for quite a while because it was fascinating years ago when it first happened upon now John's actual girlfriend, Caroline Full Color, as she's known in this too world,
Yeah.
one of the most heavily tattooed medical professionals in the world. Incredible, incredibly professional and passionate medical professional as well, nurse, if
Yeah.
I remember correctly.
Yep. Operating room
Skilled at
nurse.
what she
Yeah.
does as well. But I've
Yep.
seen her also post sometimes about some of the horrible political decisions that have been made in Poland
Hmm.
regarding women's rights, regarding transgender rights,
Yep.
and stuff like that. And it's a shame because, as you said, despite the stereotypes about Poland and Polish people that flourish around Europe for many decades,
Yeah.
they did actually used to not be that bad politically. They used to actually do some stuff and a lot of
Yep.
stuff in the right direction.
Yep. And that's what she's kind of opened my eyes to as well. And here in the States, like you were saying, a lot of it has to do with religion, which is
Mm.
United States prides itself on the separation of church and state. But we have so many leaders that want to talk about this Christian country, and really it's almost, it blows my mind that we still talk about separation of church and state, and at the same time, on the dollar bill, "In God we trust," or all these
But
politicians talking about the Christian country. So I get
but
a
but
lot
I
of
think
backlash from the religious community.
now I'm not a political expert, especially not in the US, but you follow along because the US has such an influence in the world stage. And I would say this: I sometimes have the feeling as a sociologist that religion is just the scapegoat they use to propagate these opinions.
Yeah.
I think it's way more about control, as some
Hmm.
political commentators will also say in the States and other places. And it's way more about knowing that if you don't let people, for example, look a certain way, that's also why conservatives often hate visible tattoos. Some of them will have tattoos themselves, but they
Yep.
hate when people start looking like me and John, for
Yeah.
example. Uh,
Yeah.
and and the reason for this is that masses that you don't have to to actually get to know, when you don't need to reflect upon them, you don't need to think, oh, who is John or who is Mass, when they just become a number and a drone. That's what they want.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because people that are drones don't complain about the inequality, how the wealth is shared, or anything
Yep.
like that either. They just shut
Yeah.
up and do their work and go ahead with it. And that's why they hate whenever you see, tattoo culture really coming out, or when they
Yeah.
see transgender being more accepted,
Hmm.
transgenderism being more accepted, and all that stuff. There's
Yeah.
loads of fields.
Yep.
And I think that's more the thing. It's way more about this control thing. It's the same thing they have done with tattoos for a long while, where they then will say it's against God or something like bullshit like that, and then they use that as a scapegoat to God and say it's immoral. Look at the Christian Bible and all that
Yep.
bullshit. When religious people are some of the most tattooed people on the fucking planet,
Yeah. Yeah.
ironically, and that's despite how, especially among Catholics, I find that very funny because Catholics are the group among different kinds of Christians that especially get tattooed. Yet they have
Hmm.
the one religious leader that has said no to that.
Yeah.
It's just fucking funny
Yep.
because it's like
It is.
it's almost like a kid acting out against their parent. They're like,
Yep.
the Pope says don't get tattoos. They're like, it's a
Yeah.
rosary, it's all right.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's a lot easier to control sheep and to control people who don't, want to be themselves or have their own identities or have their own idea of what
Because
they want to
it's
do with their lives.
because it's one of my favorite French philosophers said once, a guy called Jean-Paul Sartre. Uh, it's scary to realize you have free will and you are responsible for your identity.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's why fashion works. That's why all
Yeah.
those things works. Because it's
Yeah.
way easier and way less responsibility, way less stress, way less fear, way less scary to go out and say, well, okay, if I look like they tell me to look, I know I'm okay. I know I have a
Yeah.
green check mark there. Nobody's
Yep.
gonna bother me.
Yep. No, I agree with this sentiment exactly.
Yeah, cheers, man.
But But again, people like you and me, I think I realized at a young age that, you only get one shot at this life, right? And you don't want to be on my death. I don't want to be on my deathbed and say, you know what, I just did what everybody told me I was supposed to do. My life was boring. I wasn't myself, and I was forgettable.
Yeah.
And I think to me that would be the greatest tragedy and the greatest waste of a life. And you know, I never wanted to blend in. You could probably tell by how I look like and the type of surgeries that I do that, you know, I like to stir the pot a little bit. I like to kind of break down stereotypes and push the envelope a little bit. At the same
Yeah.
time, I think, you know, well poised to do it. You know, as a physician, you just don't see this in the United States or really anywhere in the world.
No, man. I mean, I only know of two medical doctors so far personally that have done this. And one is you, and the other one is Matt Davis, the ink
Yeah.
shrink.
Yep.
Both great
Yep.
guys. If you haven't watched the third episode of this podcast, Matt is absolutely a sweetheart as well.
Yeah.
But he talked about this, and that's why I really wanted you on as well, because you have talked about the same thing a bit with how within medical professions still people will still to you guys face either on social media or in person, as Matt's been told had told me as well, come up and say, "Oh, I don't want my doctor all tatted up."
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah. I
such a
think,
weird
yeah,
thing
Matt
to
even,
me. It is
I
so
think Howard
strange
Stern,
to me.
didn't Howard
Yeah,
Stern even
yeah.
say
I was
that to
such a.
him?
I'm happy he was okay to talk about that. I don't want to shit on Howard Stern as such, even though I don't
Yeah.
particularly like the man. I find his interview technique appalling, but that's also as an academic that knows how to interview in a more ethical way.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's way more clickbait kind of to use a modern term way of
Yeah.
interviewing, but it's like, oh, shock and awe, and people go on it. I think because he's a name and you need publicity, and that's why
Yeah.
people go on it.
No.
And fair enough. The only kudos I'll give him is he's willing to discuss stuff with people he doesn't agree with. That's cool. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's where my compliments for Howard Stern sort of ends.
Yeah. I mean that again, he decades ago, this is groundbreaking. He's doing new things. He's being controversial. Now he's kind of got this old school conservative mentality where I don't want my doctor to have tattoos. I mean, anybody with, you know, a normal person would have to understand that in order to become a doctor, to go through the schooling, to
Yeah.
get, you know, to become a physician like Matt and I, it's so rigorous that we're not, you know, people that are degenerates. And, you know, I don't know if it, I don't talk about it much. I don't like to brag, but it's on my website. You know, when I sat for my board certification exam in plastic surgery every year, when you graduate from residency program, you take your written boards, which is an 8-hour standardized test. Mine was in 2014. I got the highest score in the country. So I beat every other plastic surgeon in the entire nation that
You and
graduated.
Matt both are so impressive. It makes me feel so bad. And I'm so happy I
No,
dropped out of my
no.
PhD because I was
Um,
never going to amount to
and
that.
it's funny because my partner, Dr. Goldman, my business partner, we do a lot of these big surgeries together. And sometimes I won't meet the patients. You know, if it's these big microsurgery cases take all day when we're rebuilding breasts, rebuilding faces. And if it's his patient, I'll meet them the morning of surgery, but he's seen them in the office. And so he has to
Yeah.
prep his patients for me. He's like, look, you're going to meet my partner the day of surgery. Don't freak out when you see him. He's covered in tattoos. He's even said, you know, jokingly, I carry around his board certification exam score just to prove to people, look, I promise he's good at what he does.
I mean,
Um,
we laugh, but it's actually kind of sad
yeah, yeah.
because
And it really
as
it's funny because he says,
I'm gonna repeat this example I made up, hypothetical example I made up with Matt, which is like if you're dying of a heart attack in an airport and you yell out, "Is there a doctor?" Are you really gonna lie there when somebody with a face tattoo, like looking, for example, looking like John, comes over and be like, "Not him, not him."
yeah.
Are you really gonna risk your
Yeah.
life for that?
Yep.
Does it really? If you're getting a heart transplant and you wake up to somebody looking like John, are you really gonna be angry then?
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
life-saving surgery, and you're gonna tell me you're gonna be pissy about face tattoos?
yeah.
It's so.
And it,
I know I'm weird and I'm biased here because I've always loved people being different. I've always been an advocate for that even
mhm.
before I ever started any of my degrees. So I know it's fucking coming. I'm preaching to the choir as well here, sitting with John, and hopefully with my listeners. I hope many people agree with what they that watch or listen to this podcast. But for anybody that might be where we might be challenging your noble ideas and beliefs, think
Mhm.
about this. It doesn't matter. There's also, and I hate that I might actually be necessary to repeat this, tattoos don't make your IQ score slide in any direction.
No.
The- and I don't believe in IQ scores, but using a common example there, it doesn't alter your brain chemistry. It doesn't make you. The only thing it can do, as we've already spoken about, it can make you more confident, which makes you better able to communicate who you
Yeah.
are or how intelligent you are or the knowledge you know on a subject. So the only way it can affect you is make you more positive in that way.
Yeah. It's
The only
you
other
know,
thing it can do, and that's dependent sadly on other people, is that when, for example, John, and you can tell me if you've ever experienced this, but I'm just using you as a hypothetical here. Sorry about that, by the way. But let's say John's somewhere and he's at a medical conference and then people are looking down at him for being tattooed. Then you get less willing to speak out. You might know something that could teach all the other doctors something at that
Yeah.
conference. And they don't
Yeah.
get to know that because they're not willing to let you have a speaking,
Yeah.
to let you speak. And
Yeah.
that's how stigma can be so detrimental, which is one of the main points of this episode. Because you're only making people pipe down that might be fucking passionate and great at what they
Mhm.
do. As we've spoken about, fucking John's top of his class, Matt was top of at his class, and Howard, no less. Like,
Mhm.
and you're making these people not want to go out and speak up because you're saying, oh, fuck that. We don't respect that. They're fucking weird. They're not worth it.
Yep.
They're ruining their lives getting tattoos. What the fuck is this mentality? Other thing is,
Yeah.
tattooed people often have passion. It takes passion to want to be tattooed and to want to be
Yeah.
covered in tattoos. Not just for tattoos, but just in general. We're often more passionate people. And also
Absolutely.
that also seeps into other stuff we do. Why do you think I'm still
No.
making? Why do you think even though I've dropped out of PhD, I'm still making a sociology podcast? That's because I feel I
Mhm.
have something good to do. Even
Yeah.
and
No.
even though I'm unemployed, I'm still gonna continue doing this because I'm
Yeah.
passionate about it. That's another good
Yeah.
example. John as well. You could tell there could be speaking for you here. I'm sorry about that, John.
Yeah.
But what I've got to know about John shortly, the few times we've spoken so far, and you're going to his Instagram and talk to him a bit today before the interview. There could be 100 people tomorrow that tell him they don't want his doctor to be tatted up. He wouldn't care because he's passionate
No.
about what he does.
Yeah. I don't. As a matter of fact, it's a great screening tool for me that,
Yeah,
people
imagine.
like me, you research your doctor. If you're going to your plastic surgeon, unless it's a traumatic situation where, but the majority of my
Yeah,
patients
an
meet me in
accident
my
or
office
something.
for
Yeah.
consultations. Well, they know what they're getting. They know when I walk in the door that I'm going to have a face tattoo, I'm going to have neck tattoos. And so it weeds out people because people are like, oh God, you're getting your tattoos on your face and your hands. You're not going to have any work. I said, look, people who respect it will come to my office and they'll think, hey, this guy must know his shit if he looks like that. And then the people who don't like it, the closed-minded people, well, I don't want them in my office anyways because I wouldn't vibe with them. So it's been a real great way to
Yeah.
screen out people who have these old stereotypes and I wouldn't have a good interaction with them anyways, right? So to me, it's been
Yeah.
a great screening tool for my practice and really been a helpful thing rather than something that hurt my practice. I think I now I even probably I'm the busiest I've ever been in my career. And I have,
I
very
mean, you
visible
certainly, from
tattoos.
the outside, you certainly don't seem to be lacking in patience.
No, I'm
Like,
like, I'm trying to figure out, like, I used to work on I was working on weekends for a while, even just because to keep the wait list low. So no, business is good. My practice is good. My patients, and again, it
mm,
goes back to kind of the transgender aspect of what I do. I mean, these patients relate to me, not that having a tattoo is anything like walking in the shoes of a transgender person, but it's me being my authentic self, right?
yeah.
And so,
And you've
the
also
patient,
changed your appearance to be that. So there's
exactly.
something you can relate
Yeah.
to there. In a small sense, of course,
Yeah.
it's not the same thing, but there's still something you can relate to there with them that
Yeah.
others might
So
not be able to.
absolutely. A transgender person, transgender people have been judged on their appearance every day, every time they go outside. And they've decided to say, fuck it, I'm just going to be my true self and I don't care. And in a way, that was actually very inspiring to me. I never had the neck tattoo or the face tattoo or the hand tattoos until I really started working with the transgender community. And I was like, you know what? They're being themselves. Fuck it. I'm just going to be myself.
Yeah.
And so we kind of vibe on that level. So the patients come to me and they say, look, I'm not going to judge you. You're not going to judge me. Let's do this. And if anything, we have a connection that, your average middle-aged, gray-haired white guy, with his little suit and uptight attitude is not going to have the same connection with the patients. And for some
Mm.
of these very difficult surgeries that require a lot of trust in your doctor and a lot of aftercare, you have to have a good relationship with them. The rapport with the patient is key.
Yeah.
And for me, I think this actually gives me a better rapport with my patients in that we're nonconformists, right? And
I mean, I would argue the same. There's a lot to be said about how tattoos can often make you more relatable to people as well.
mhm.
It is more often than not more conservative crowds that don't like it, no matter what
Yeah.
profession it's in.
Yep.
Other people actually often end up finding you more relatable or more interesting, and in some other ways, it connects you with people in
It
that way.
does. It's
It can also be a very good icebreaker in a lot of situations.
oh,
It can almost, as I've experienced it, take the tension out of a room
it
in a way.
does. So many of my patients will come to me and say, talking to you is like talking to one of my friends, right? I walk in here, you have all these tattoos and the hair and everything, and it's just like talking to a friend, and immediately they're comfortable with me. And when they're used to, going to a doctor's office, and, doctors typically tend to be upper class, more wealthy, more conservative. And, a lot of the patients, especially your blue collar patient, your average middle class person, may not vibe with that and may not be comfortable with them. When they see me covered in tattoos, and especially in Las Vegas, where we have tons of tattoos, every Starbucks barista's got, a neck tattoo. So my patients, especially the younger professionals, I may not see the older crowd wanting the facelifts and things like that, although I do see them too.
No.
I start to see a lot of young professionals too, who are tattooed, and it's becoming more accepted here in the United States well, not maybe in the United States per se, but in Las Vegas,
Well, I
having
mean,
tattoos.
again, it's such a vast country, and every state is its own country with its
Yeah.
own culture. So
Yeah.
it depends on the state, I would say. But I've also seen examples of certain areas like Nevada, at least Las Vegas and Nevada,
Yeah.
and California in certain areas. Not everywhere in California because it's a massive state, but certain parts of California as well, and other places on the East Coast where it's becoming way more common for young professionals, no matter even if they're fucking in the business area and all that sort of stuff, or banking or anything like that. The only
Yeah.
professions where it's like, oh, this is a conservative crowd, where they're getting tattooed
Yep.
and quite heavily so.
Yeah. And I think that the trend is going to be that in, 10, 20 years, it won't be taboo, even
No.
in, the accounting, the business world. We're not seeing as much of in the business world, but like you were saying with healthcare, I think with healthcare, one of the reasons I think maybe it's becoming a little bit more acceptable, especially for the nurses and things like that, is that we have a shortage, right? A
Yeah.
lot of people don't want to go into healthcare because the hours are horrible. A lot of times we're treated poorly by patients. We see people at their worst, right?
Yeah.
Before I started doing mostly transgender surgery, I was doing, cancer and trauma. So I used to say,
Mm.
if you met me at my job, it was one of the worst days of your life. So I
Yep.
used to give people a break when they were treating me like shit, right? Because they just got diagnosed with cancer. They just had their arm cut off. So I can't expect them to treat me like a gentleman, or
No.
a lady, or whatever. So I always gave people kind of a break. But you know what? Healthcare workers are finally realizing this shit sucks sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It's the pay isn't great, the hours suck, and
The
we're
least you
not
could
getting
do is
some
let people be themselves in and out
yeah.
of the scrubs. Like,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
so I think we're seeing that there's a shortage in people wanting to become doctors. I know here in Nevada, we have a huge shortage of doctors and nurses. And so, if you're going to be picky, hospitals can't be picky about hiring nurses with no tattoos because you won't have anybody. And the patients can't be picky about what color what race, color, or tattoo or not tattooed your nurse or your doctor is, because otherwise you'll be shit out of luck. So I think in that regard, because it's less people are wanting to have the lifestyle of a healthcare worker, it's almost like you get what you can get, right? And if your doctor, your nurse, or your radiology tech has a tattoo, well, you don't have another option. So you better either get with the times, or you're not going to be getting any help in the healthcare world.
But it's quite interesting because, as we talked about a bit before the interview, because a lot of studies will show, and a lot of statistics will show that it is mainly nurses and other people below doctor that get tattoos in the healthcare system often and have them. But I think there's another reason for that as well. They are way more in the shit. They are way more in the trenches often.
Yeah.
Doctors
Yeah.
can often retreat to their offices as well and do a lot of the
Yeah.
paperwork and that, which is also a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
Yeah.
putting
No, but
down
you're
how
right.
much work it is,
Right.
but they do. And I think, as an embodiment sociologist, I think having that much contact with people that are in a horrible state, because if you are in a hospital for any prolonged time, it's not because things are well.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not just a broken arm or something like that. If you're in there for a long time, something's bad. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think meeting people so much, even if they don't give you abuse and they're so down, you really want to take yourself in there and have something you can anchor yourself in. And tattoos are great for that.
Yeah.
I think that's what it also is, and why they sort of gravitate more towards it than some
Yeah.
doctors do, perhaps, because you do want to do that.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I may spend 15 minutes checking on my patient in the hospital that did surgery on every day, where the nurse is with them for 12 hours. And here in the United States, a little bit different than in Europe. Our healthcare or our education, we have to pay for it ourselves here pretty much. And so certainly nursing degrees can be expensive, and all of the other training that you need for other parts of the healthcare system. But as a doctor, just for me alone, I borrowed about $375,000 in student loans. I still owe $200,000, and I've been in
Oh,
practice for 10 years. And so a lot of physicians are like, I, I'm so specialized in my career. I'm imprisoned by this debt. I'll never have another,
mm,
if I lose my job as a doctor, I'll never pay, my life will be ruined, right? Financially.
yeah,
And so you're kind of a prisoner to this student loans that you've taken out that are going to take you
mm,
20 years to pay off. And so a lot of people aren't willing to take the gamble of, of getting a tattoo that's visible, that can affect their career.
Yeah, they don't
And
want to. They are so scared of the stigma and how that might
yeah,
ruin their career that
yeah,
they don't want to take the
yeah,
chance, which is sad because
it
I
is.
doubt it would, because people
And
need to go to the
I
doctor.
I felt like I was kind of a unique situation. I started, again, I was a professor at UNLV, and when I started doing my throat and my hands, and the reason I felt like maybe I knew it was a gamble. I knew there's a chance that
Uh,
the dean is going to call me into his office and say, "Hey, man, because the
that's
medical
gotta
students
go. Like,
at that time when I started tattooing my throat, the medical
yeah.
students had a policy that they had to cover their tattoos in the hospital. So, you have a
What?
little band-aid on their wrist, a band-aid on their
Jeez.
ear, and then their assistant professor walks in blasted with neck and hands. So I
Yeah.
was waiting for the dean, I was waiting for the higher ups, my boss, the chair people to just say, "Hey, look, man, we can't have this. This is not what we represent." So,
Yeah.
but again, I don't have a family. And so a lot of all my colleagues are, have a family, and if they lose their job, it's not just them whose lives they're ruining. It's their children, their spouse, whoever else in their family that relies on them. And so I was like, you know what? I don't have a family. I'm the only one. I built the transgender surgery program at UNLV. It was one of there are very few in the country that do it. And I was like, they can't really fire me. And if they do, well, you know what? I'll be a martyr. And
Mm.
so it, interestingly enough, no, they never said anything. And then when I went on to my own practice, I was like, look, now I'm my own boss. I can do whatever the hell I want. So I started
Mm.
tattooing my face. It's funny
Yeah.
because my business partner, Dr. Goldman, he did tell me, he goes, look, John, I didn't have any face tattoos when we started private practice, just my throat, my hands. And he said, hey, I know you're going to tattoo your face. It's obvious. He goes, can you just do me one favor? Can you wait 1 year into practice just to make sure that we're doing okay, just in case
Mm.
this derails everything? And I said, look, out of respect for you, I will do that. I will agree
All
to one
right.
not tattooing my face. And so actually I got this rabbit at the 1 year anniversary
Yeah.
of our practice. I didn't even
Nice,
wait one.
man. That's
Yeah.
also cool, It's nice. Like it's
Yep.
fun to celebrate. As everybody
Yep.
that like for most listeners who probably tattooed like we are, it's always fun
Yeah.
to celebrate with tattoos. Like
Oh
it's just
yeah.
fun. It's always
The
fun.
majority,
Like
the majority of my tattoos at the younger age now, it's just part of my Saturday. But it used to be like, oh, I got a good test score, I got this program,
uh,
or and then I would get a tattoo. But this rabbit I actually got on April 1st. I don't know if you have April Fool's Day in Denmark, but April Fool's Day is
yeah.
yeah. So I got it April 1st, the 1 year anniversary of opening the practice, and I put it on Instagram. Everyone's like, oh, that's funny, April Fool's. And then when it was still there on April 2nd, everyone's like, holy shit, you got a face tattoo. But even my partner realized, look, man, like, and again, and out of respect for him and the fact that, it is still a gamble in healthcare to get a face tattoo as a doctor. It could have went totally awry.
But but I think it's
So
good that we have people like you. We talked a bit about your girlfriend that are the vanguard, so to speak, going out
yeah,
and showing that heavily
yep,
tattooed people both can be respectful. You can also work in things that has so much that are so heavy on hospitality and taking care of people when they're at their lowest, and still be great at it.
yeah,
That's the great thing. Because I also think if you have a problem attracting people, first of all, it could be fixed by paying people more, especially here
yeah,
in Europe, where we're getting underfunded by a lot of governments. That's one thing. But another thing is you attract people to professions, as many find out sometimes, which is why police around Europe often have now slacked on their rules with visible tattoos and police officers.
yeah,
Because people want to be somewhere if they can be themselves. Because people,
yeah,
especially the younger generations now, and I think this is awesome of them, they're no longer willing to sell out themselves
yeah.
for a 9 to 5.
I love this.
And it's
Being
not
your
that they're
authentic
not willing
self.
to have a 9 to 5. They get that that can be necessary. They just don't want to sell out who they are anymore. And I think
Yeah,
that's great. That's absolutely
yep.
great.
And as we see more people in these kind of professions, and the younger generations are loving tattoos, I'm sure it's the same in
I
Scandinavia.
wish they were. I mean, I'm gonna be the old guy now, even though I'm younger than John. For one moment, I'll have one cranky fucking millennial moment right now, and that's it. Uh, get better tattoos. Like some of you get great tattoos, but some of you, fuck man. I get that money's tight, safer.
Yep. Yep.
Fuck
Yeah,
me.
because especially when you're young, all the tattoos. I had a few tattoos that. So when I was maybe 20, early 20s, I got these two tribal. If you go to my Instagram and look, I had these matching
Yeah.
tribal tattoos on my shoulder, and like after oh man, I mean, after a few years, I'm like, man, this is very dated. And so if you look at my sleeves, you can kind of see that I kind of incorporated so
I
it's kind of hidden. It's not a cover up per se, but
no.
I blended my stupid tribal tattoos into like a glorious cover up. I tell everybody it's the largest cover up of all time. I did a whole sleeve to cover up a tiny shoulder tattoo. Um, and so And then I also have a cross tattoo I got when I was my first tattoo
But
actually
it's
when I was
like,
19.
we spoke about before the interview. We don't mind shady tattoos as such. We just think if you're young and you're only going to get a few tattoos, which is most of you out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
get good ones. If
Yep.
you're gonna cover yourself, I mean, I'm not at John's level yet, but that is the plan at some point.
Yeah.
It's all right to have a couple of shitty tattoos. It's almost
Yeah.
fun in a way. Like you
Yeah.
let somebody practice and different new style they want to do. You whatever. Like for some reason, in a massive collection of tattoos, you will at some point have a shittier tattoo or
Yeah.
3 or 5.
And a lot of tattoo artists too. A lot of my friends, some of my good friends are tattoo artists, right? And some of
Oh
them have
yeah,
the shittiest tattoos,
yeah.
right? Like,
That's
because they're
always been the
practicing on
funny
each
thing to me
other.
because we don't see it as much anymore. But even when I started getting tattooed in the late knots as an 18-year-old man, I quickly found out that man, many tattoo artists have shit tattoos. Like
Yeah,
really, like
it's so true. Yep. I mean,
you
they're
don't
getting
see it
them
as
on
much anymore. Like I see many tattoo artists now that have great tattoos, but man,
yeah.
it is funny how many tattoo artists like have shit tattoos sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they
And
do
it's
incredible tattoos on other people, but the ones they
yep.
got are just not there.
Yeah, and sometimes in very visible areas too, because they're
Mm,
getting them when they're 17, 18, 19
yeah,
years old when they're doing them on each
yeah,
other, right? And
yeah.
it's almost like to be a tattoo artist, at least in the United States, you kind of have to be covered in tattoos, right? For people to trust you, right?
It's weird.
And
It's weird, and I'll digress quickly on this topic with you. But it is strange because I get that theoretically you don't need it, but also get the cultural aspect of it's fucking weird getting a tattoo from somebody without tattoos.
yeah, I
And I've
did it in
seen people
Sweden
from
actually.
different places in the world that are that are not tattooed themselves, and they're quite good at tattooing other
Yeah.
people. But still, to me, it doesn't sit right. If I got tattooed by somebody without tattoos, I would keep feeling like you think I'm an idiot right now. You're tattooing me while thinking in your head, why the fuck is he going through this shit? What a
Yeah.
sucker. I'm getting paid to ruin his body. It's like, no.
Yeah.
That's what I would it would be like, and I'm gonna as either people are gonna get very tired of this or people are gonna be loving this, but it's almost my catchphrase. It's like compare it to my dad's profession of being a plumber. You wouldn't want a plumber that doesn't have a toilet at
Yeah.
home. I
Yeah.
don't think he's gonna get the urgency of the matter if he's fixing your
Yeah.
fucking toilet. If he's willing to shit on the floor in his house.
This is a very good analogy, but yeah, I actually got a tattoo when I was in Sweden over the summer, just a tiny little tattoo,
Ah,
and the
a
artist
wrong
had zero
country in
tattoos.
Scandinavia, but okay.
Yeah, she had zero tattoos. The artist had zero tattoos,
I mean,
and I asked her about
I
this.
have two problems with this story.
Mhm.
One is the one you are talking about. The other one is you went to Sweden and not Denmark.
So, the reason I went to Sweden, actually, this is an interesting story. And if you haven't seen him on Instagram, there's a nurse in Sweden named Daniel Mars.
Yeah, I've actually met him in real life.
Oh, good.
He
Yeah. So,
he used to be he grew up with a former colleague I had when I worked for, and I'm not going to name the name of it because I don't want to throw shade, but I worked for a
yeah.
not too good online tattoo publication. And we were
Okay.
around at some Swedish conventions and that, and my Swedish
Yeah.
colleague went to school with himself. Yet met Daniel Morse a couple of times,
Okay.
and I knew you did a photo shoot with him at that. So it was
Yeah.
quite funny to
So,
see. Yeah.
so this is a very interesting story. So let me tell you about this. This is actually kind of how I met Carolina too. So
All right.
I never had social media up until 2 years ago. I've just been so busy. I never had Facebook. I never had Instagram, MySpace, Twitter. I never had it until right before I opened my own practice. My marketing team's like, "What the fuck? How do you not have social media of all people? You do these crazy plastic surgeries. You're covered in tattoos. You're a character. You need it." And so I said, "Okay, fine." So it actually has been very helpful for work. But one thing, it's allowed me to connect with people around the world who are, there's not many of people in healthcare blasted like this, right? So
No, not at all.
I came across Daniel and I became Instagram friends, right almost as soon as I started having Instagram a couple of years ago, and I wasn't doing any modeling or anything like that, and I just we just started texting over Instagram like, hey man, like it's cool to see another healthcare worker just blasted like you are. It's just so rare. And he's like, hey man, I do a lot of modeling. Maybe you should come to Sweden and we could do a photo shoot. And I actually go to Europe once or twice a year by myself. Usually I go to a
Oh,
different
that's
country every single time. And I was like, you know what? I'd never been to Scandinavia. I had some other Instagram buddies who are photographers in Sweden. I said, fuck it, I'll go. So I ended up going to Sweden, met Daniel, did a photo shoot with him. And it was such a cool photo shoot having two, a nurse and a doctor
yeah,
just covered in tattoos. And it was so well received, and people were just so shocked to see this
man.
that that him and
Yeah,
I
it kind of
became
went viral in the tattoo world on social
yeah,
media.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was. And so And so it was kind of shocking to see like two healthcare workers just completely covered like this. And so Daniel and I, we remain friends and everything. And that's kind of interesting how I met my girlfriend is that um I was just scrolling through face tattoo pictures on Instagram one day, and I saw this beautiful girl with dreadlocks, just like me, face tattoos, neck tattoos, with scrubs on. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And so it was funny because I was going to, when I go to click on her, I'm like, well, maybe she's from LA or something. Please be from Los Angeles, right? And so I click on her and I'm like, Poland. I'm like, oh man.
Shit.
So anyways, I reached out to her and I said, hey, look, I have this week off in January. So this was months ago in the fall.
Uh,
So I have this week off in January and I'd never been to Poland and I always travel once a year. And I said, I had this great experience with Daniel in Sweden. We did this photo shoot and people were just like shocked that there's these healthcare workers out there who are blasted. And I was like, if I came out to Poland for a week, would you be able to find an afternoon to do a photo shoot with me? And she's like, that sounds great. And then, as the weeks go by and we
I
start
mean,
texting,
as pickup lines go, that's pretty good. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, hey, I'm free of the week. Hey, yeah. Do you want to do a
want
photo
to do
shoot?
a photo shoot? Like,
Yeah. You want to do a photo shoot as a tattooed healthcare professional? And I just, I just wanted to have an interesting photo shoot, just like I did with Daniel. And as weeks went by and we're texting and talking, we realized that there was a lot more of a connection. And so Carolina ended up saying, well, hey, since you're coming out for a week, why don't I'm going to take that week off from work and we can spend the week together.
nice.
And I said, that
It
sounds
did look
awesome.
like you guys had a great time following
We had a
your
great time.
story a bit. Yeah.
And also, I don't know if you're familiar with the Job Stoppers with Joaquim. So Job Stoppers is this Instagram account by this guy Joaquim. He's a photographer, and the whole account is face tattoo portraits.
Oh,
And
nice.
so I do encourage you to look at it. A lot of the black and
I
whites
will.
I posted were from him, and so he's in Belgium, and so
I
he
think
was on
I did
Instagram
look at it a bit when I saw your shoot
yeah.
posted. Yeah.
So he's based in Belgium, and we became kind of friends over social media because I was a surgeon with a face tattoo, and his whole entire thing is face tattoo portraits. That's his whole Instagram. He does books on this and things like that. And so
I might have to call him in for an interview.
Yeah, he's a very talented photographer, and his whole focus is heavily tattooed people, but particularly face tattoos, and that's why his account's Job Stoppers. And so I was texting him and I told him, hey, look, I'm going to be in Poland for a week, and I looked to see how close Poland is. You just have to fly over.
It's not too far. It's for American, it's close, I would guess.
Yeah, that's close. I mean, in America, I was like, that's just like going to another state. So I said, hey, look, I'm going to be in Poland for a week. Would you, if I pop in for a weekend, would you be free to do a photo shoot? And he's like, yeah, I would love to have a surgeon with a face tattoo on my nice. In a book or in my Instagram. And so I asked Carolina, before I came, I said, hey, look, do you want to, I'm going to take a vacation.
You want to go Belgium?
And go to Belgium. Do you want to go to
Great
Belgium?
Waffles, man.
Yeah. So we ended up spending the week together in Poland, did a photo shoot with, there with some of her photographers, had a great time and just kind of fell in love with each other, really. And then we ended up going to Belgium together, spent the weekend in Belgium, did this photo shoot with Joaquim from Job Stoppers, with some really beautiful photos of the two of us individually, as well as the two of us kind of together as two healthcare workers with face tattoos. So
I mean, it's quite, really cool if you haven't seen the photo shoot yet, which I doubt if you're watching this, you haven't seen that because it's way more popular than this podcast is currently, at least. It's incredible. Like, I fucking love the idea and the scrub. You both in your scrubs and all that stuff. Absolutely awesome. Same with the one with Daniel, but the one with Carolina was like next level because it's also the whole you were becoming a Cobble thing, and it's male and female represented and all that. And you also, both of you, like Daniel is quite tattooed as well, but both of you have quite
giant
a lot
face
above
tattoo.
the neck as well. Like Carolina even has the top of her head done.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell I've been following Carolina for a while. Not in a creepy way. Not in a creepy way.
No, she's amazing. And so interesting.
I followed her years ago because, same reason why you were fascinated with her and Daniel, and I'm not even a medical professional myself, but just you saw this nurse from Poland that was like completely covered. I was just like, this is awesome. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
I just had this idea one day I want to do something with her. I didn't know at the time what. I just thought, okay, maybe at that time I was still dreaming of getting the PhD. I thought maybe I can use some research one day. Maybe I can use like if I do anything like for TV or something when I have my degree or something like I just had this idea that I think it's so cool. Push the boundaries for that. Like
Yeah, no, she's
I
got a
got the
heart
next
of
big
gold
thing. I got
too.
her American boyfriend on here, so it's all
Well,
right.
I mean, and kind of what you said about, me being very passionate about my career. I don't
Mm.
drink, I don't go out. I hardly even leave town because I'm always available to my patients 24/7, 365. Carolina is very much the same. She's worked at the same public hospital in Poland for 16 years. She's been an OR nurse, very dedicated, still doing
Oh
night shift,
yes, I've
summer for
seen some
shift.
of the stuff she's posted over the years
Yeah.
from her job, and it's
Yeah. Her job is intense, and so she's very dedicated, and also same thing, doesn't party, doesn't really go out, and she's just totally committed, and really has a heart of gold, and
I
that's
mean, you could just literally build a nest in Nevada and herm it up like
yeah, yeah,
together.
exactly. So yeah, so she'll be moving here. Hopefully the end of next month. She had her last days at work in Poland, so she put in her notice in Poland.
It's gotta be quite a culture shock for her, I think, but I think it's
Oh
gonna be
yeah,
good for both
it
of
was
you
a
if you
culture
get
shock
out.
for me living
I
to Las
imagine
Vegas.
so, man. Fuck it.
It's an interesting town, and but here the nice thing about Las Vegas is you have Las Vegas Strip, which is the chaos, the partying, the entertainment. But I live 25 minutes away in the suburbs. Right, I
Yeah.
have a mountain right here in my
Yeah, that's I've
backyard.
heard that about Vegas before that
Yeah.
people only think about the strip, but it's
Mhm.
almost baffling, especially from a sociological perspective, how
Yeah.
little a distance you need to travel away from the strip
Yeah.
before it becomes a completely different thing.
I almost never go to the strip. I'll go there a couple times a year if I have a friend in town, or if Carolina moves here, I'll take her to a show or a dinner, I'm
I
sure.
mean, you kind of have
Um,
to. Like, you
you
do
have
need
to,
to like.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it seems weird if you're like, oh yeah, this is fascinating thing people travel to all from all over the
Yeah.
world. We're not gonna go there, honey.
Yeah, yeah. So I go, and that's the nice thing. I go see concerts. Everything comes to Las Vegas. Your family and friends come here. I don't have to visit them. They visit me.
And now you got that whole new bowl thing
Yeah, the
as
Sphere. So
well.
I did go see that
The
with my
sphere.
nephews. My brother and my nephews came to town, and so I did see the Sphere. I do see concerts, like, from time to time. I see a football game. So it's great that I have world-class entertainment at my fingertips. But I live in a very normal, just
Yeah.
another southwestern city in the United States, and so I did actually live on the Strip though for 2 years. And so before I moved
Oh,
out to the suburbs, I lived in a actually I lived in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. It was the Mandarin Oriental. But they have condos at the top of the hotel. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Once I move to
jeez.
the suburbs, I know I'm going to die in the suburbs. And I was like, and again, I don't drink, I don't go out, but just to feel the energy of Las Vegas Boulevard. So I lived on the Strip in
Must
a
be special,
hotel
yeah.
for 2 years. And it was wild, man. It was just, and just people watching. As a sociologist, you would love it. The people watching in Las
I
Vegas.
mean, it's the only thing, and I must admit, that's the European sort of panic with thinking about the States with the whole gun thing, and that's the main thing that scares me. The
Yeah.
other thing that scares me about the South, both Florida and Nevada, is the heat. But that's a personal thing, because
Yeah.
anything above, and I'll try and do this in Fahrenheit, even though I'm not good
Yeah.
at it for the American for John, but I'll do it in Celsius first.
Yeah.
Anything above 19, and I start having increasing trouble surviving.
Yeah.
So that's like
Yeah.
anything above 60 something
Yeah.
degrees.
I think
Uh,
it gets to be, I mean,
no,
110
70,
degrees.
70, even anything above 70, I think it
Yeah.
is. And they like really start like incrementally getting worse off
Yeah.
in the heat.
It is it will get to be 100, and I think we set a record like a year or two ago, 100
Yeah,
degrees, which is maybe
yeah,
40 something degrees
yeah.
Fahrenheit Celsius.
God, I don't even get how you get tattooed in such sun, man. Like, I would be
Oh,
scared of them being fried off, man.
so unlike Scandinavia, where you never know when the snow is coming and it can ruin your plans or your day, I know it's going to be hot all summer. So I just go
Yeah,
from air
true.
conditioned house, air conditioned car, air conditioned work, and then back, and so you plan your day around the heat. And it's really nice in the evenings, right? Because it cools off. In the desert, as soon as the sun goes
Well,
down, it
that's the
cools
thing.
off.
It gets very cold. Like I've
Yeah.
also seen online friend. I used to be closer with her sometimes because she was on a previous podcast trying to do called Katie. Uh, I can't remember her last name right now, but she told me about how it could snow at night in Nevada sometimes.
Yeah. We had snow.
Uh,
I had snow. So I had snow on my car when I came out from surgery 2 days ago. I couldn't believe
but
it
that's the thing. It's
because
the whole thing with the deserts. As I've tried being in Sahara when I was way younger, it's incredible to see in real time ice crystals forming when you sleep out under the open sky, and then you
yeah.
wake up in the morning to fucking a morning that starts with 37 degrees.
Yep, yep. It's really bizarre. The mountains right here have snow on the top of them, and it
That's
was,
the thing.
70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what, 18, 20 degrees the other day with snow on the mountains. It's crazy.
Jeez, man. Well, you are
Yeah.
talking me more into having to visit. Like I'm forming too many connections in the States now that I do need to
Yeah.
sort out like a tour at some point
You should
when
come
I when I
visit.
when I get out of my unemployment stint right now.
You should come. You for sure come. Dunk's actually
Absolutely.
coming to visit this year too, at some
Who?
point. Duncan, the English
Oh yeah, Duncan.
PhD
Shit,
guy.
man.
Yeah,
I keep forgetting he calls himself Dunk sometimes.
yeah. Dunk's coming out to visit this
Yeah.
year.
And I think I realized now, which he never told me directly, but I think I fucking figured out because he keeps posting shit about Scotland, that he might actually originally be Scottish.
Oh, I don't know.
I have
I
some
didn't go into
relation to
that.
there, which only makes him greater for me because after living in Scotland, that's my favorite people on the fucking planet, man.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like, there,
No,
if I could ever
Dunk's a great
advise
guy.
you, you do got to visit Scotland at some point if you haven't been yet.
I've never been. I've been all over. Scotland's on my short list. Obviously
Especially
been to,
Glasgow. Especially Glasgow.
yeah, it's on my short
Great
list.
city.
Been to Ireland, my ancestry is Irish mostly, and so been to
Really?
Dublin, been to England multiple times, but not Scotland. It's on my short list, especially since they speak perfect English, right? That's always makes it
I
easier for
mean,
me.
yeah.
I mean, Scottish English, yeah, but
Yeah.
sometimes I travel to places,
I mean,
you know,
I tend to adopt dialects in English when I talk to people. I don't adopt the American one for some weird reason. I just go more neutral in how I speak.
yeah,
But when I speak to Scottish people, I start speaking with a Scottish dialect, and the slang comes back to me as well. And I have met Americans that can't understand a fucking word I'm saying when I
yeah,
speak in that dialect.
yep, yep,
Especially because of the slang. The slang makes it very
yeah,
bad sometimes, but it sounds great. Like instead of cannot, it's canny, and
yep.
like anything with not in it, it becomes a donny, canny, shanny, like wouldn't he? Like,
It's definitely on my short list of places to visit
right.
for sure.
Oh man, right, John. We've been around the fucking mill right now. It's been fucking great. But before we start another episode about travel plans, we got around it off so I don't keep you away from your tattoo appointment as well.
Yeah,
So at the end, no, because we've actually covered all the topics I planned for today just by talking shite together, and it's great. I love
yeah,
that. But I have a personal pet peeve to settle with John that I know other
yeah.
people have with him as well. And I gotta ask this question, even though it's been asked it before. Because the thing is, as common as John is, and most people can only see him, if you haven't seen him before, so describe that from the chest up right now, and his arms and hands and that. There's one thing that bothers and boggles the mind for other tattoo collectors. Because as common as John is, he has one fully untattooed leg.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
gotta ask,
Yeah. So
have you suffered new added pressure from your girlfriend about that leg as well now?
yeah, it almost I feel like guilty that my girlfriend has more tattoos than me because her legs are covered,
I mean,
but
foul, actually.
she's a smaller surface area than me. So
True,
probably
true,
I have
true,
total
true.
body surface area, we're probably about tied. But so yeah, the funny story about the leg. I'll go into the leg. The leg is so I always do I don't like to have too many projects going at once, right?
No.
And I already have planned for my leg, and there's a piece on my back and my buttocks that that I already know what I want. And since I go every week, I alternate between three areas. So right now I'm doing head and neck, torso, and leg. And so
All
then I
right.
alternate every third week I hit it. And so I didn't want to have too many projects going at once, right? And so my right leg has no actually has a tiny just one tiny tattoo from years ago.
Okay.
But
It does. It just
so
still looks kind of funny when you see because
everybody says that. They're like,
it's
it just
so.
stands out.
Because
Like
I've seen
it's
other
so
people,
sharp.
that do the whole half and half weird thing, and it sort of works. But for you, it's
Yeah,
just the leg.
just my right leg. The leg, what I realize is, my left leg, the legs are so much bigger than arms, right? And if I
I
go back to
imagine,
burn
yeah.
surgery, a burn,
I sadly
9%.
haven't gone below the torso yet, so
So
but
the
I
leg
do
is
hear
take
it's
forever. So I've been working on this leg. And so, but again, all my tattoos are like fully saturated, right?
uh
And so I wanted to fully complete this left leg before I start my right leg. So I did.
I do get that.
So actually today I'm starting my second background layer. So I sleeved out the leg, which took, many, many months. And then I did a background layer of different color bubbles. And today I'm going to black out all of the spaces in between from the foot up.
Ooh.
So I have
Sounds like
probably
a
several
fun
more
day.
sessions. Yeah, I'll be on my toes today. I'm actually not excited for that. So just like,
Fuck
so just
that.
like I
From
have my
what I
hands,
hear, fuck that.
I'm going to do this to my toes in a few hours. So then once I'm
Well,
done this leg, I already have
for the
plans for my right.
religious among any viewers and listeners,
What's that?
For the religious among you, pray for him.
Yeah, pray for me.
Yeah,
That's
I'm an
actually why I went to
atheist.
the gym.
I'm an atheist myself, so all I can give John is my deepest sympathies. But
This is why I
yeah,
went to the gym early this morning because I knew that I wasn't going to be running for a few days.
yeah, fuck that, man. You
Yeah,
gotta chill
no,
out after
no.
that.
I usually go to the gym. Like I'll get a fresh head tattoo and go right to the gym. And my artist is like, "You're fucking crazy, man." And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Look, I'm committed to my tattoos. I'm committed to my fitness. I don't let the two interrupt each
I
other."
gotta get back in the
Um,
gym because I do miss it, but I never work out after tattoo. Like that.
oh,
That's a
I have
week
to.
off. Like, oof,
It's
man.
like OCD. If I don't get my workout
Ah,
in, I have a rigid schedule for working out. 2 days on, 1 day off. 2 days on, 1 day off. If
all
I
right.
miss a day, even if I get out of surgery at 11 p.m. at night, I'll go
I
to the
mean,
gym.
in this
If I miss
budding
a day, it
friendship, I
fucks
have
my
I
head
have
up.
played with the thought of starting having you as my workout buddy and having to send you stuff when I go to the gym. But I'm
Mhm.
grueling how you'll be with me if I start doing that to you.
No, I don't skip a day. So,
I'm not sure I can handle the American can't do spirit if I start sending John workout selfies.
yeah, yeah. So that's the thing. I try to inspire people too. Like people see, oh, this is doctor. Because whenever my patients are like, oh, I don't have time to work out, I'm like, I make time. You make time. I make time.
But I think that's a great way to sum you up because with your tattoos, with your passion for what you do and the workouts and everything, you really are a guy that through and through wants to inspire others, not to
Mhm.
necessarily do the same thing as you, but just to be happy
Yeah,
with themselves.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny. They call me the man of extremes, right? Everything I do, I don't do a lot of things in my life, but everything I do it to the extreme. If I'm going to get a tattoo, I'm going to get a bodysuit. If I'm going to work out, I'm going to work out every day obsessively. If I'm going to be a plastic surgeon, I'm going to do the hardest plastic surgeries. If I'm going to have a girlfriend, I'm going to make sure she's from the other side of the world, you know? Um, Everything I do, I have to do the most extreme version of it, and that's just kind of how I've been my whole life. And It's not for everybody, but for me, I have an interesting life. I have a very happy life. I'm proud of my accomplishments. I don't regret any of the things I've done, and I'm still just getting started. I feel like so.
I mean,
Stay tuned.
there's a beauty to the madness, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
It
you
keeps
are
me
mad.
busy.
Like,
My day
let me,
full.
in the most British way I could say it, you are fucking mad. In a beautiful way, but you are
Yes.
fucking mad.
Yeah, I'm aware of this. I'm the good kind of crazy, the fun kind of crazy, not
Oh,
the scary
absolutely. It's
kind.
salt of the earth, some people would say. Still mad. Like,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't deny that for one iota.
right, John. Last thing I have left to do now is just, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
I've really fully enjoyed this episode. It's been great. I think we covered some truly deep and educational topics here today.
Yeah,
Hopefully, uh, people get something out of this. I truly hope so. Uh,
absolutely.
Last thing I just want to ask you is, do you have anything you want to plug? I mean, I'm definitely putting your Instagram under the videos of that, but if you want to say it, that's also good. But
No, that's it as
I'm
well.
definitely tagging it.
The Instagram has is honestly, I put a lot of the crazy surgeries on my Instagram, the shock
Mm.
value kind of surgeries, because everyone's like, why don't you put boob jobs and breast, and Botox on your Instagram? I said, look, every plastic surgeon does that. But if
Yeah.
you want to see some of my, my basic work, or even a lot of the genital surgeries I do, I can't put that on Instagram. Go to my website,
Oh,
vegaspsi.com. You'll see some pictures of some of the cosmetic surgery I do, as well as some of the exotic, reconstructions and transgender
oh,
surgery too. So,
that's
yeah,
awesome. Well, people, thank you to anybody that has enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And thank you, John.
appreciate you, man.
Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that episode with John. He's quite the character. He's an awesome guy and a great surgeon as well, who, as you can probably tell from this episode, cares a lot about his practice, his patients, and also his tattoos and his identity. Like, we all should be allowed to care about who we are without facing stigma in our profession, because John still wears a surgeon, as you know, from being heavily tattooed as he is, and he's actually made it quite a thing in his career in a way, as he talked about, to sort of vet people when they want to go into his practice. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you liked it. I know many of you watching it probably don't stigmatize people for having tattoos, but if you know somebody that does, maybe they could use watching the episode as a way of maybe getting them to see a better way of being about people with tattoos. But enough about this episode. As I said, I hope you enjoyed it. Next time, we're going to be diving into something completely different and maybe a bit very different for this podcast. I'll be talking to the renowned Maya Searlook, about Inuit tattoo traditions, which are, spoiler alert, a bit more spiritual and more communal in their traditional forms than they might be today. And we're going to be talking about how Maya, as an Inuit person, sees the current reclaiming of Inuit tattoo traditions, to turn a phrase there, and how she looks at them compared to what we know from archaeology and historical research on Inuit tattoo traditions, and what she's been a part of doing in that field herself, uncovering and rediscovering some tattoo traditions from the Inuit peoples of the Arctic part of the world, northern Arctic part of the world. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a bit different, and I hope you'll enjoy that when it comes out soon. So stay tuned for that one.